Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
Welcome, everyone. This is Gavin Sequeira from Break Free from Corporate, and welcome to another podcast for the day. Look, I'm really excited today to bring my good friend and also, I would say, fellow mentor, Frank de Palma. Frank is someone that I've gotten to know over the last few years. He's actually someone I do karate with on the side, and he's a black belt at karate. He's an exceptional person. He's a successful business owner. And we share a passion in marketing, and he's someone who has a very strong marketing background, has worked with some pretty big brand names out there, like I believe Kraft and Uncle Tobys and Cadbury and others. And I'm just really excited to have Frank on the call today to share some of his thoughts, his experience. Hopefully you'll get some tips out of just listening to what he has to say. So Frank, if you're there, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gavin. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So, look, I'm excited to just have a chat with you and, find out a little bit more about your journey, things you've kind of been through, things you've seen, challenges you've faced, and kind of how you've ended up where you are today. So, let's talk about, maybe going back a little bit. You've obviously had a strong corporate background, and you worked in the areas of marketing and sales and things like that. How did that sort of eventuate to you going into your own business? Like, what was that journey like for you? How did it start?
Gavin, I think it was back in my Cadbury days. Initially I came over from Adelaide after doing my marketing degree, and always wanted to work for a blue chip organisation because they're just so exciting, and you get to practice so many aspects of the marketing mix, and they've got decent budgets and great resources. And I was working on the children's portfolio, which is products like Frito and Caramello. And
I love those brands. Yes.
Oh, fantastic, iconic brands.
Yeah.
But in the portfolio was a product called Buzz Bars, and Buzz Bars, the company had a philosophy: if they generated under $5 million worth of revenue, they'll be deleted, and we'll launch new products,
right,
which hopefully generated more revenue. And I was thinking I had to delete 3 of them, and each of them generated sales of $1 million each. And I did my own calculations, Gavin, and I realised for $1 million, let's say they're making 30% margin.
Yeah.
$300,000 a year just for one product. I could live off that very comfortably. And
sure.
This was about, 35 years ago.
Wow.
So that planted the seed in my mind that one day I wouldn't mind launching my own business or my own product, let's say. And then over time, and I decided the way I was going to go about it is probably get experience in 3 or 4 organizations and pick out the best attributes from each and use those in my own business. And that's what I basically did. But then in the mid-90s, I was a marketing manager at Uncle Tobys, and they got taken over by another firm, and they were moving from Melbourne to Sydney.
Right.
And my wife and I decided we didn't want to make that move. And at that stage, I had 15 odd years of marketing experience. And I really didn't want to work for another organization because it's basically the same work, but just a different badge.
Yeah.
But also importantly for me, I realized I wasn't a politician. And I worked out that to get ahead in the corporate world, you need to be a good networker and a good politician. Yeah. And I wasn't neither of those. And
neither was I.
My potential would be limited. It's like a pyramid, Gavin, isn't it?
That's right.
The higher you get, the fewer the roles.
Exactly.
So I decided I'll take a redundancy, and I was still working for him for about 5 or 6 months. And in that time, I worked out the type of business I wanted to develop. And I was fortunate that gave me enough time to put together my business plan. And when my day came, I literally hit the ground running.
Wow. So when you did this, Frank, many years ago, obviously, was it common for someone at that, during those times to want to venture out on their own, or did you feel a little bit like you were taking quite a big step out of your comfort zone? You're working for these big, large corporations where, you're part of a big team, you've got the comfort of going into an office structure, all of that thing around you, and suddenly venturing out into your own. I mean, what was that like? A little bit scary at the time?
Very, very scary, Gavin. It actually takes a massive amount of courage. And
Yeah.
I admire people who've tried it, regardless if it works or doesn't, because there's a high failure rate. But if you've got a good product and you've got resilience, anything's possible. But I had no safety net around me, and I lost my Uncle Tobys badge, and all of a sudden, a lot of people dropped off my network. Because Frank's starting a design and promotions company, so all of a sudden, and I had no money. I literally had no money. I've been married for about a year and a bit.
Wow.
I had a mortgage to pay, and I lost my company car, so I had to buy a new car, and I actually ended up buying a Ford Falcon from one of the reps.
Oh, wow.
So I lost a lot of prestige, but it never really worried me. And I knew my business was going to be a success. So it was inevitable. It was only a matter of time before it all kicked off big time.
So what I'm hearing is obviously you had a lot of self-confidence in a time of real uncertainty. I mean, recently married, a mortgage, obviously you're really just starting off in life, and you would have had to have had a lot of really good support around you as well to encourage you to keep going. Because it's not easy, to just step away from that comfort zone. I know a lot of people who try to do that and very quickly get pulled back into that safety net. And you said you didn't have much of a safety net.
No, I probably didn't even have a safety net. Yeah. I decided I wasn't going to talk to my friends, my network, about what I was doing, because I found there was a lot of negativity. So I thought, no, I don't need the negativity, because that's going to I might believe it. So I just kept it all to myself. Even my wife was worried about it. And a year into it, we had our first daughter. And right. So my wife was on maternity leave, and there was minimal income. And the first 3 years, I really wasn't making a lot of money. I still saw the potential. I saw the green shoots.
Yes.
But it really wasn't coming in at that stage.
Yeah.
But I can see it was within reach. So my approach was just to have a lot of positivity around me. Don't believe the people saying, no, I can't, it's not going to work. Because one of the things I was doing, Gavin, at the beginning, I did something slightly different. My firm we started off doing consumer promotions, but also then doing design work and point of sale and other bits and pieces, a little bit of advertising. Companies really didn't exist, which at the time that were doing so many different things in different categories.
Yeah.
You were classified either as an advertising agency, a consumer promotions agency, or a packaging design agency. And I couldn't see the reason why you couldn't do all of those things.
Yes. So you really were, in a way, a little bit of a trailblazer, because you had this idea, well, why can't I combine these different areas and provide an end-to-end solution almost?
totally.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate because being a marketing manager, I used to observe all the account directors coming into the office, and you would have to brief one on one project, and then another on another project, and another on another project. I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. If one agency can do all those things and do them well, it'll make my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well, so then, once I started and I got a brief for, let's say, a consumer promotion, then I would start talking to the client about maybe doing some point of sale, maybe doing a trade advert to promote it, and while I'm there, if you're doing a new line extension, rather than briefing the packaging designers, brief me and I'll manage that for you as well.
Yeah. It almost makes common sense what you're saying, but it's really interesting to know that maybe going back a few years, this wasn't the common trend. You had very specialist niche businesses that did what they did, and then you'd refer on to someone else. And if you were the client, I mean, you had to really manage quite a lot of different agencies or people to get, a project done. And what you really try to do was make it simpler or simple for the end consumer, for the client of yours, which, just makes complete sense. And I talk to a lot of people, Frank, these days, as you probably know, and a lot of them are like, I don't know what I could do if I were to start a business. I just don't know what area I'd go into. And quite often I ask them questions like, well, what do you do at work? You in your line of work, in your expertise, do you see gaps? Do you see areas that can be improved? Like you said, you'd hear the reps or the people coming in and talking about things, and you'd see these little inefficiencies, and you might go, look, maybe I could do that differently, or if I were to do this on my own, I could fix that hole in the market. And that's basically what you did, isn't it?
Yeah, spot on. And I also realised that once you're in the office, in a client's office, next door to your clients, that marketing manager is another marketing manager.
Yeah.
So another potential client. So I made sure that as I left the building, I said hello to as many of the marketers as I could.
Yeah.
And then that out of that organisation, you might pick up 5, 10, 20 different clients or prospects.
Yeah. No,
it's a lot harder these days because the security has increased tenfold. So in some of those big blue chip clients, you don't even get to go around their offices. No, they take you straight to a meeting room and then they walk you straight out.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate when I started. Security was a lot more relaxed, and you could literally walk straight in.
You could say goodbye before you actually exited the building.
No, totally. I enjoyed it like that. It was a lot more personal.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was made redundant 13 years ago from when I used to work for IBM and Oracle and big tech companies like that. And when I was during the GFC in 1997, and there were a lot of big companies, blue chip companies that were sizing down and restructuring and all of that sort of thing. And I was offered another role within the company, but at the time it just, it was almost like a step down. And I wasn't that political person like you say, you need to be to succeed. And I didn't want to play the politics of the game. And I just thought, look, this is a perfect opportunity for me to go out and try and do something on my own. But I remember when I had to hand in my badge and things like that, I literally had 10 minutes. I had security with me, like to escort me out of the building. So they gave me just enough time to walk around the floor and say bye to a few people. But I had people on other floors and all which, I just couldn't say bye to them and things like that. So it was a different time maybe back then. Today, it's probably even stricter. But I guess, regardless, just keeping good relations with as many people from your corporate days still comes in handy, doesn't it?
No, totally. And even though a lot of them dropped off and they dropped off, there's a handful who've been incredibly loyal and have helped me like you wouldn't believe.
Mm.
But not doing me any favors, but just giving me an opportunity to do a small job.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting anybody to give me anything on a platter, but just I wanted to be able to pitch for something small, like just a flyer or a shelf wobbler, anything, because when I started, I had nothing in my portfolio, and it's very difficult to try to win new business when you've got nothing to show the prospect.
Yeah.
And so there were two individuals who gave me that opportunity, and it snowballed. I grabbed the opportunity and I just turned it into gold.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you're working for a big corporate company, a big name, a big brand out there, everyone knows you, but you become the brand to a lot of the people around you. So you know, people identify you as that person. You're the Kraft guy, you're the Uncle Tobys guy, or you're the, you know, you might be the Cadbury guy. But the minute you step out of that, you're just Frank or Gavin.
Look, it's something you need to experience, isn't it, Gavin? Because
completely.
It captures you by surprise.
Yeah, it's a bit of a humbling moment.
Oh, totally. And Gavin, a little bit like you, I remember my last day at Uncle Tobys, and I used to work weekends. I used to drive parcels to agencies or printers to save the company a $10 courier cost.
Yeah.
And I saw, I mean, I was only there, I don't know, 4 years. I saw people who'd been there 23 years just showing the door.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, it was a total eye-opener, and it did me a big favour, because I realised no one's that important. We're just monkeys on the treadmill.
Yeah.
And you think you're quite important while you're working there and you've got the big title.
That's right.
You're easily replaced, and the brand keeps on growing, but the people just disappear.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, I learned this firsthand, because it wasn't, you know, when I was made redundant, there were about 450 people in our organization that got made redundant that day. And this,
Wow.
you know, they literally got rid of an entire division, starting from the CEO of the Asia Pacific. He was the guy who literally started that arm in Asia. This was a US company, Oracle, and they built an entire division, but they got rid of the entire division. So it just shows, you know, you could have worked, and there were people there who worked for 30 plus years, 35. You know, they'd worked there almost their entire adult life in that part of the company, gone. Yeah. And, you know, I had to realize really quickly, it's not a personal thing. It's a business decision. Someone at the top, it's a dollars and cents thing. It's, you know, and if it doesn't make sense, you're expendable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no regrets. They did us a massive favor.
Yeah, I think, well, I'd like to think so as well, you know, and I also think if I wasn't put in that position, maybe I might have stuck around a bit longer, but I'd already sort of made up my mind to make that shift. I just needed that nudge. And I think what's happening over the last few months and even years is people are slowly waking up to ask that question: is this where I want to be for the next 5 years, 10 years? You know, do I really, or 20 years, do I really want to be doing the same thing day in, day out? Do I think I can do better? You know, what do you say to people like that who are, let's say, quite a few years younger than us? You know, maybe they're 10 years into their corporate life, 15 years, or whatever it might be, and now they're starting to really question, you know, what else could they do? You know, what would you say to them?
Gavin, that's a good question, because I say the same thing to everybody: is firstly, be honest with yourself, and are you really that good? And if you really are, because I've seen a lot of people take a lot of credit for other people's work.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of forget, you know, that you launch a product and it goes through the roof and you think, gee, I'm good. But if you break it down, that idea came from someone else who had to twist your arm to do it. And then the sales guys generated all the product listing in the supermarkets and everything, the promotional activity. You're just taking the credit. So you may not have the skill set to actually do anything outside of the corporate world. But if you do, and you know, you're honest with yourself, you got to roll the dice. I don't think, my philosophy was always, I don't want to be on my deathbed and have any regrets that are, you know, when I was in my 30s or 40s or 50s or 20s, whatever, that I should have done something. You know, I had this idea, for Afterpay and you know, and I sat on it because people were telling me it had no potential. I think you got to roll the dice. You got to use those skills you've gained in the corporate world, because you learn, the corporate world sets you up to have your own business if you really want to, and if you work hard, you can work out how to read numbers. You can work out how to do sales. You can work out how to do marketing. You got to try it, and if it doesn't work, well, then there's no regrets. You've tried it, and you know it's not for you, or you know you got to tweak it a little bit, your concept.
Yeah.
But you've got to give it a go, because you don't want to die wondering.
No, you don't, do you? I mean, it's a really good point you bring up, which is being honest with yourself. Do you think you're good enough? That's actually a place where a lot of people struggle, because a lot of people's confidence, you know, for whatever reason, it's not that high. Now, there's some people that are extremely confident, but the vast majority of people are not, that I come across. And for them to then take that leap of faith, it's a really hard thing to do. And I often suggest, Frank, as you know, for people to transition their way across. So, you know, if you can start to grow some skills on the side, if you can start to experiment, try things, you know, even if it starts off as a hobby or something on the side where you can get involved in some form of business, you know, where you're doing something other than your main job. And it doesn't even have to be in the same line of work, but just to get that experience of making a sale, making a customer call, servicing, you know, someone, like offering a product or whatever it might be, and then dealing with the fallout from that. Just going through that whole process outside of your corporate job gives you so much experience. And I think we get a lot of great experience just being in the corporate world, because, you know, you get access to IT and sales and support and customer service and all of these people around you, finance, accounting, where, you know, you otherwise don't, you know, you don't get that kind of business acumen anywhere else. So we're quite fortunate to have come from the corporate world, I think. You know, and I never...
Kevin, 100%, you're right. And one of the things I did, for example, was once I planted the seed in my mind I was going to launch my own company at some stage, I ended up spending a lot more time in the field with the reps. And my excuse was, I need to spend some time in the field with the sales force, just to know what their day-to-day activities are like and how I could develop ideas to help them. So during that process, I went to a lot of supermarkets and milk bars, and I did a lot of buyer presentations to Coles and Woolies.
Yeah.
And that was just building up my skill set.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in the finance department. You know, how do you read these numbers? What should I be looking for? How do I gauge a trend? And it just prepared me. So once I decided I was going to launch my own organization, I knew the boxes I had to tick.
Yes.
No, so it's an important thing to do, Gavin. You're right.
No, 100%. And then you probably, I guess, when you started your business, you would have realized, well, your strengths are in certain areas, but you might need to build a team around you at some point to help you in the areas that you're not strong. Would that be right in assuming?
Correct. And, you know, Gavin, so now my core business is really branding and packaging design.
Yeah.
So, but however, I'm not a graphic designer. I don't even know how to use Photoshop or Illustrator.
Yeah.
But I've got a team of phenomenal designers around me and production experts. So that's their skill set. I can't be across absolutely everything. So my competitive advantage is that when they do a design, I'm almost a client. I know what my client wants before they know it. But I couldn't build my business without key people around me.
Yeah.
And that includes office administration and accounting.
Oh, yeah.
There's only so many times in the day and the week, and I try to have a balanced life to keep me fresh. And once I learnt how to delegate, just my revenue tripled literally overnight because I wasn't doing all the work.
Yes, that's a really good point, actually. You just mentioned quite a few really good points in there. Obviously, the fact that you realize that you need to grow a team around you to succeed, and the point at which you started to delegate and really move into a higher role of managing the business, not necessarily doing all the work because you're limited by the number of hours in the day. You saw your business grow because now you're operating as a true business owner. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Fascinating. And so that would have been a skill that you would have had to develop because, coming from the corporate world, you performed a specific role within the company. Now you're responsible for managing the roles within your business. It's quite a shift.
It's a big shift. But, there's a lot of sources of information to help you make that shift. So I enjoy doing it, reading on businesses and successful businesses and businesses that fail. And those are some of the outtakes that I've gathered from that research.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell me, Frank, obviously when you started your business and in the early part, what were, let's say, a couple of really key challenges that you immediately faced when you got started? Because obviously when people start their business, as you said right in the beginning, there's a really high chance of failure. The odds are really stacked against you. What would you say were one or two of the really big things that hit you up front that you just had to push through and learn and develop and I guess get better at?
The cash flow was number one.
Yes.
Because if you don't have money, you can't do anything.
Right.
And all the reading I did in owning a business and surviving and being successful was all about cash flow.
Yeah.
And if I had 5 jobs or 10 jobs or 20 jobs on the go, that's great, but I don't invoice the full amount until I complete the job. But in the interim, I'm paying staff.
Yes.
I'm paying leases.
Yep.
I'm paying for materials, papers and photocopiers. And if it's a print job, like an annual report or some posters, I'm paying the printer. So, it might be $100,000 job, but I might have $70,000 worth of costs. Managing that was incredibly tricky. And I had some savings, but they weren't significant. So one of the techniques I used was I developed a really strong relationship with my printers, and as long as if they gave me quality work and on time, I would pay them within 7 days if I could. And they really appreciated the prompt payments. So then down the track, when I got into cash flow challenges, they would give me a little bit of leniency. And one of the other things I did was to help manage cash flow, I kept the money in the business. I didn't spend it. Once I started making some money, I just built up a reserve. I've been in business 22 years and I've never had an overdraft. So I've always managed my... Oh, no, and I don't understand why, if you can avoid an overdraft, avoid it, because why pay the bank that extra money?
Yep.
And it's by just controlling my revenue. So that's been my biggest challenge.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right at the very, very top of all the I mean, there's many reasons why businesses don't make it, but that is probably the number one, I'd say, because almost everyone I talk to mentions cash flow. Can't reiterate how important it is to manage your cash. But to do that, you also have to be comfortable with dealing with money, managing money, understanding numbers, just being able to balance books, knowing where funds are coming in and out of. And, I suggest to people to have a separate bank account sometimes. If you're starting a business on the side, try and keep that separate to your personal account so that you can see the money coming in and out of your business and you can manage it better.
I couldn't agree more. That's a fantastic suggestion, Gavin.
Yeah. Well, look, that's I love the fact that you, from day one, you were really careful of how you manage. And you said, one of the great tips you just mentioned was you kept any money or profit or anything you might have made in the business and reinvested it, and built really good relationships with your suppliers and people around you. So you could negotiate better trade deals with them when times got tough.
Mm.
You can never underestimate how important relationships come in. And sometimes I see people, they get into business and they might have been quite senior in an organization, and they were quite demanding of their staff back then, and they might have spoken in a certain tone. They get into business and they still carry that air of authority with them, and then they're dealing with a printer, or they're dealing with someone now, and they're quite brazen with their language and things like that, and they burn bridges very quickly.
It doesn't work. Yeah,
it doesn't work. Yeah. No, that's really great. So tell us a little bit about your business, Frank. I mean, obviously you do a number of things. Design is one of them. Advertising. It's called Pinpoint Design. Is that correct?
Yeah. Pinpoint Design. We're based in St Kilda here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We've got a team of 12 people at the moment, so it's a great team of
Fantastic.
Professional designers and production people. And core business is really branding. We design logos for organisations and all the collateral like posters and signage and annual reports. But our biggest area of expertise is fast-moving consumer goods.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work for companies like Cadbury, McCain's, SPC, Schweppes, those type of companies.
Great. And how did the name Pinpoint come about? I've always been curious to ask you that. I can't remember if you've mentioned in the past, but I'd love to know how you came up with your name and your brand to begin.
Well, it wasn't my idea. So, Gavin, when I left Uncle Tobys, I actually went into partnership with two other guys, and it only lasted a year. And they had a different vision, and so I decided, no, this isn't going to work, and I left the partnership and I started a company called the Palma Marketing. So I was outsourcing to Pinpoints. So Pinpoint were just a husband and wife team, and they only had 2 or 3 clients, no FMCG clients, but they were doing a little bit of work for Dulux.
Right.
And I became their biggest client. So in my first year in business, I brought in Nintendo, Heinz, and Berry fruit juice.
Wow.
And then Cerealy household and body care. They had a product called Masseur sandals. Remember those?
Yeah. I know all the brands you've just mentioned. They're household brands.
I was fortunate because I was just this business was going to work, Gavin. So I picked all of them up, and I became Pinpoint's biggest clients.
Right.
And they named it the business Pinpoint because their designs pinpointed the client's brief, basically.
Gotcha.
But in a year, they were actually burning out. So actually, there was another learning for me is that if you don't manage if you don't get balance in your life, you can easily burn out
Yeah.
especially in this industry, because would you believe, Gavin, the design industry is a crisis industry.
Yep.
Clients, every job we do is almost a crisis job.
Yeah.
A client will come to us once they realise they've got the product, the trade have accepted it, but they've got no packaging design.
Yeah.
It's like, Frank, please, I really need a big favour. You need to do this really quickly for me. Or
Everything is urgent. Yep.
Everything's urgent. And like even designing a cherry ripe, the printer needs a bit of time to print that label, roll it up and deliver it to the factory. And, there's certain times of the year it's very hard getting printing space because they're printing for Christmas or Easter. So their production lines are fully occupied. So that cuts into your delivery time as well.
Yeah.
So the previous owner, he had literally burnt out.
Right.
And he said, Frank, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to close the doors. Would you like to buy it from me?
Wow.
And
okay.
Yeah, why not? There was about 4 people. There were 4 people in the team. They had processes in place which I quite liked.
Yep.
And that's how I became the owner of Pinpoint Design.
Wow, what a story. Okay, so that makes perfect sense, and I like the fact that let's analyze that a little bit. So in you taking over Pinpoint, you saw that they had processes in place, they had a team. You'd already been doing quite a bit of work. You were their biggest client, in fact, with them, and so you saw the potential to really grow that, didn't you? You didn't just take over something because it was offered to you.
No, the foundation was there. The foundation was there, and I decided, Gavin, down the track, if I ever sold my business, it's easier to sell a company called Pinpoint Design than it is to sell a company called Palma Marketing.
Well, that's right. Well, yeah. No, 2 really good points. So, because I see a lot of people these days, they don't necessarily want to start their own business, but they get sweet talked into some other deal. So someone's either offering something for sale, or if they invest in this, they can grow it, and they don't do a lot of research into the actual business. And obviously, you need to look at where, if you're going to put your money into anything, if you're going to buy out someone, if you're going to go partnership with someone. And by the way, even with partnerships, Frank, I see a lot of people go into partnerships really early on, and they haven't got enough to stand on their own 2 feet, let alone go into a partnership and offer, something strong. And most of those partnerships tend to fail, unfortunately. So I, personally, just from my point of view, I always recommend to people, stand in your own 2 feet first if you can, and then enter into a partnership so that you come from a position of strength. But I think what you mentioned is really, really powerful. That you saw the potential, the processes were there. It had a brand name that wasn't attached to your personal name necessarily. So if you had to sell it in the future, it's a lot easier to let that one go than, if someone were to buy De Palma Marketing, they're really buying you, aren't they?
That's right. So that's a bit of a negative. But
Yeah.
Again, your points are valid, Gavin, that you really got to do your research. And I was fortunate because I knew Pinpoints.
Yeah.
I probably paid a little bit too much for it, but it wasn't a problem because I saw the potential in the business. I had at the time Cadbury wasn't a client yet.
Right.
I was chasing Cadbury as a client, and even though I had worked there for 4 years, mind you, I chased them for 3.5 years. And my wife in the morning will say, well, what are you doing today? Who are you going to approach any new clients? I say, I'm going to have a coffee with this guy from Cadbury. And she'll go, oh, Frank, you're wasting your time. You've been trying to get in some work from them for years.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm close, honey. And
any day now. Yep.
Any day now. And then it happened by accident. Not by accident. I got a job in their international department to help them on a project, and I was in the lift, and someone saw me. Her name Anna replaced me on the kids' portfolio. When I left, I went overseas for a year. And she said, "Oh, after your meeting, come by. I've got this urgent job I need some help on. If you've got some capacity, come and see me." So I saw Anna, and it was a little project on Yowie.
Oh, yeah.
I had to put together a very quick consumer promotion for the Yowie brand. And I did. That's my first big job at Cadbury. And I did the work, and it was successful, and they were happy. And I was in her office, and we were reviewing the final results. And her colleague in the office next door knocked on the door and said, "Frank, are you Frank de Palma? Can you see me after your meeting? I've got this urgent project."
Look at that. Yeah.
And so, Gavin, I went to see this marketer, and she was using a global agency to relaunch Europe's shrimp food bars. I remember it was coconut rough.
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't get the image on the product right. And she said, "Look, Frank, the marketing director's not happy with this, where we're at. This has got to go to the printer tomorrow. I'm really desperate. Can you help us?" And I said, "Look, give it to me. I'll get the guys to stay back tonight. We'll do it overnight, and you'll have it in the morning." So I did it, and the marketing director loved the work.
Yeah.
Signed it off, and he called me into the office, and a couple of days later he said, "Frank, I just want to know, here's a gift pack. You really saved our bacon because we needed to make this product in a couple of weeks," and blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you need anything, just let me know." And I said, "Michael, look, thank you for the gift pack, but what I would really like is the opportunity to pitch on future projects."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, definitely, Frank." And I didn't really entirely believe him.
Yeah.
I thought, I've heard this before. He's just been nice. And anyway, a couple of weeks later, he briefed me on a block chocolate rebrand. And from there, it snowballed.
Fantastic.
And it was just all about that perseverance, 3.5 years. Heinz was another client, which I literally chased for 18 months.
Yeah, wow.
And it's an important, it's a really important trait. If you start your own business, you need a lot of resilience because it does get a little bit bumpy.
Yes.
But if you stick to your plan, you've got your objectives you're trying to reach, and you've got a plan to do that. It's a fantastic ride.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so rewarding when it finally comes through because you never gave up. And you mentioned about planning and having goals and having that vision. How important is that for a new person going into business or starting something on the side or whatever it means? How important is it to have that vision, not just for that first dollar to come in tomorrow, but a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, to really have that long-term plan so that when things do get bumpy, they still steer the course. How important is that, Frank?
It's crucial because you can't measure your success. You don't know if you're on track. You don't. How do you set your activities for the day if you don't have a plan?
Yeah.
It's a crucial part of the business. It lays the foundation.
Definitely.
If you don't plan, you're in a lot of trouble. And yeah, one of the things, Gavin, I did, which was also really helped me build a successful business, was understanding my clients, but also categorizing my clients into 3 key areas. I classified them as A, B, and C's, but basically they're either, I would only do work for clients who are high margin or high volume but low margin, because that's a good thing too.
Yes.
Or they'll portfolio clients. So clients who really, the margins weren't great, they were difficult to work with. However, they looked really good in the portfolio and it opened up doors with other clients.
Right. Yep.
So that helped me categorize my clients and work out organizations I wanted to target.
Good point. And did that also help you set realistic expectations? It's like, okay, if I'm going to go after, let's say, target C clients, which are going to be difficult to work with, low margins, but they're going to be good for my portfolio. Therefore, I'm prepared to invest the time in it. and I don't expect a lot out of it, but I know what I'm in for. So the expectations are realistic.
Totally. And
Yeah.
Gavin, my first priority was always high margin clients.
Yeah.
And or let's say what I would classify as an A client. But then once I exhaust all that list in the A list, then I would drop to the B list.
Right.
I would try to avoid the C's because they're not really worth my time. But if an easy opportunity presented itself to talk to one of them, I would.
Right.
But my focus was always on the big volume guys at the top.
Yeah. And again, like you say, you have to prioritize where you spend your time. And when cash flow is the number one thing driving your business, you want to go after the high margin clients. You basically want to make smart decisions from day one, if you can, which I think
Totally.
makes perfect sense. No, that's really great. Now, obviously, you've been in business for a little over 20 years now, Frank, which is an incredible feat in itself. So congratulations on that. How have you seen the trend with technology over these last few years, in your business? Like, obviously, you've had to adapt and change and move the business along with the times. How important is it to try and stay on top of technology? And how critical has that been to your success?
Well, technology has basically changed the way we work now.
Mm.
You almost don't need an office. You can work remotely. You've got a good laptop.
Yeah.
You can be at your beach house, and your support staff, your designers, like in my case, could be working from their farms.
Sure.
And just the software as well is so much more advanced, and also the management systems you could manage your projects online are so much more sophisticated. It's phenomenal. And the fact that Zoom and Teams, you can have meetings off site.
Oh, they're great tools. Yeah.
It just makes life so much easier. And when I started, emails were just coming in. We still used fax machines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm still old enough to remember the old fax machine. In fact, some businesses still use it. I know a lot of doctors and medical organizations still, to this day, send things through fax. And some
it's
things
amazing.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It is. No, that's a really good point. So yeah, technology has evolved. Would you say it's easier to do business today or get started in business today than it was, let's say, 20 years ago?
Way easier. The only downside is there's more competition now because everybody wants to do it. So if you start your own business, you really need a key point of difference.
Yeah.
To give you the edge. But it does make it easy for you to run your own business, and everything's cheaper too today. Laptops are cheaper, the software's cheaper.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier as well.
So perhaps maybe the cost of getting into business is a lot lower than it might have been, traditionally, say 20, 30 years ago. But the point of difference is really the sticky point right now, where because there's a lot more transparency, there's a lot more options for people online. You really have to stand out. You have to deliver a good product or service.
Yeah, definitely, and you got to make the calls.
Yeah.
My philosophy with my team here is that it doesn't really matter if there's a financial crisis going on or anything. I would only account for 0.05 of the total market in Australia.
Mm.
So even if the market shrinks by 20%, I only need to pick up, 2 or 3 new clients, and the world is a wonderful place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. So even if there's, news in the media of things going down and industries, slowing, and for whatever reasons, it doesn't necessarily mean doom and gloom. You just keep making those phone calls, keep following up on your prospects, and keep looking after your customers, revisiting your past clients, keeping up those relationships. Because like you said, in a small business or when you're first starting off, it's just that 1 or 2 or 3 clients that you need makes all the difference in the world.
Gavin, 100%.
Yeah.
And you might be down because your numbers aren't where you want them to be. and your cash flow's poor. But then, by this afternoon, I'll get an email from a client who wants to relaunch an entire range of nappies. And it's not a pitch, it's a job. All they want me to do is come in and start working on it straight away. Yeah. And it changes your mind, or you get a phone call from someone who referred me to him, and he works for some big organisation, and they've looked at our website, love our work, and can I do this job? Is it okay if they send me a brief?
Yeah.
It can change
very quickly. Yeah. And tell us just briefly, Frank, in your journey, like, have you had a good support network around you? How important is something like that to have, like-minded people that you associate with, perhaps mentors and people that can guide you? I mean, what would you recommend for people that are getting started in this area?
You need an outlet to get the tension out of your system, and professional people who've got similar experiences to talk about their journey and their experiences, and that has a massive impact on you. And it could be a business coach, it'll be someone like yourself, Gavin. You've had a lot of corporate experience. It could be I have a breakfast. I train and have breakfast with 5 like-minded business people on a Saturday morning, and the highlight is after we train, we have this breakfast, and you just talk about the market, what's happening, what's going on in their world, and it doesn't matter what industry it is. We've all got similar problems, and it's a great learning experience.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's great. So you don't have to do a business on your own, because being in business otherwise is pretty lonely. But if you can surround yourself with good people that are on the same page as you, it doesn't matter where they are necessarily in life or even in their business, but just so that you have these discussions, you can move forward as a team almost. I think that's really quite critical. Frank, what we'll do now, as we're nearing towards the end of this really informative chat that we've had, I usually do this thing called a rapid response with most of our guests, and it's really just I'm just going to ask you a couple of really quick points, and whatever comes to your mind, just let me know. So if you're happy to do that, it's just shooting from the hip, so to speak. Does that make sense? Yep. Yeah. So what's your favorite mode of learning? How do you pick up information these days?
Well, I use the net. I love reading autobiographies, for example, and also just attending seminars as well. Fantastic.
Now, do you have any role models out there, or people that you almost look up to as a hero that have kind of guided you, or source of inspiration? Anyone that comes to mind?
My CEO at Cadbury Schweppes, Kevin Hayes. I learned so much from him. He was a leader of men, just an amazing person.
Awesome. And any quotes or things that stand out for you that, you've always remembered, or, in times when it got tough, those words always floated past you and it just carried you, a bit further that you'd like to share?
Actually, can I have 3, Gavin?
You can. Go for it.
Yeah. One is, it's a bit corny, but it's a Rocky one. I love Rocky.
Oh, I love Rocky. Yeah.
His quote was, "It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can hit and keep moving forward."
Yes.
And it's just about the toughness of working in the business world.
Yeah, love that one.
To me, it's a classic.
Yeah.
The 2 others. One is, opportunities don't happen; you create them.
Oh, that's another really good one. Yes.
I love that one, because no excuses. There's no such thing as an excuse. You either do it or you don't, and you can't blame other people, bad luck.
Yes.
And the last one is from, would you believe, Charles Darwin?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and it's relevant today. And I'll say it first, but what was it? It is not the strongest of the species that survive, and nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change.
Oh, that's
And
perfect. Yeah.
I love that because I remember at uni we spent quite a few chapters on organizational change, and a lot of people can't deal with change. And I've seen businesses, you become a dinosaur, businesses
Oh,
fail
totally.
because they're not adapting to the marketplace.
Mm.
And it's happened to me. I've been slow in certain areas, and you got to make a decision. The market's moved away from the way you set it up at the beginning, so you either change or you say goodbye to your career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really good, really, really great quotes, and actually really good piece of advice from them as well. So, what about any type of cause or charity or anything that you support or have supported or believe in, with what you do?
Well, look, I support most charities, but
Sure.
at the moment, I've I've skewed towards just supporting the homeless here in Victoria.
Yeah. Right.
Like, mm.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. And then, you know, this one always raises a few eyebrows, but I like to ask, is there anything about you that perhaps some people don't know or are not aware of, something quirky? Now, I know you're a black belt in karate, but is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience, just so they get to know Frank from a different perspective? Maybe that was the one you wanted to share. I'm not sure.
Well, something I did when I was at Cadbury, I decided that I needed a break from working so damn hard, because I was literally working 6 days a week. It was such a motivational place. The management there just encouraged you to work. There were such great leaders, and I thought I had a friend who had a car accident, and it made me decide to take a bit of time off. And what did I do? I resigned from Cadbury, and I didn't tell my parents, and I went to Italy to discover my roots, because I've got an Italian background.
Fantastic.
And I ended up working in Germany as a kitchen hand during the winter. And I used to ride my bike from one village, it was central Germany, one village to the next village where I was working in this restaurant. And I was riding through countryside for about 14 kilometers in the snow.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't really that well prepared. I used to have all my gear on, but also plastic bags on my feet and my gloves, because the rain, the snow, and that was getting in. And that was a life lesson for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't even tell my parents I had quit my job. But I think I was 27 at the time. So yeah, that's something about me.
That's amazing. Riding in the snow, 14 kilometers to get to work. And some people complain, going 20 minutes on a train across the bridge or something like that. So when
it's pathetic. Gavin, I used to finish at 1 o'clock in the morning. So riding my bike back home, 1 o'clock in the morning in pitch black, bit of snow coming down. It was just a fabulous time.
Oh, look, you would have learned a lot from that, a lot of resilience built up in that time. And look, finally, Frank, you've been in business now over 20 years. What do you see for the horizon, maybe the next 10 or 20 years for you? I mean, have you got any plans for where Pinpoint Designs go, or, what should we keep an eye out for?
A couple of things. I'm actually going to launch a product, would you believe, later this year.
Awesome. Okay.
It's all a little bit hush-hush at the moment.
Sure.
Gavin, I'll tell you all about it in the next few weeks.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
And I've decided, I've identified an opportunity in the marketplace.
Right.
And I'm going for it. Fantastic. Also, the business, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. I've cut some overheads just to streamline it a little bit more, because the market's in a bit of an awkward state at the moment. And then I might get a young designer, creative director who may one day want to buy the business, just starting to think about the future and maybe selling it.
Like maybe a potential exit strategy.
Exactly, exit strategy in the next 5 to 10 years, not just yet.
So I like all the things you just mentioned. So even after being in business for over 20 years, you're still reinventing yourself. You're still looking for opportunities in the market. You're still looking at ways to make sure your systems, your processes, everything are in check, and even potentially looking at one day or someday down the track, exiting the game and making sure your business has value so you could sell it. And you put in all this hard work over the years. Why just close the doors? If you can sell it and walk out of it with something in hand, I think that's fantastic. That's a great way to look at it.
No, thank you, Gavin. It's a great opportunity for a young designer or a couple of young designers who want to have their own business. They've got the heritage and the goodwill of Pinpoints. It's got a great reputation. It's going to be a great opportunity for someone else, and then it becomes their responsibility. Gavin, I look at my clients and most of them are happy, but it just reinforces that I never want to go back into the corporate world.
Yeah.
I see how hard it is for them. My aim is always to make their life so much more easier, but I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
Yeah, no, and I love the fact that you come from the perspective of wanting to make your clients' lives easier. So you're thinking of them, putting their needs first, and that's what drives everything around your business. And I think that's really the way to succeed, because if you put the person you're trying to help first, I think you'll always come out on top. That's just my personal point of view. And I like the fact that you're willing to give an opportunity for someone else, someone new, someone fresh who's getting started, maybe a young, enthusiastic, entrepreneurial designer, to one day maybe take over your business. Because that's essentially the opportunity that was given to you, wasn't it? Many, many years ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's really up to someone who wants to create something. You can always still by yourself, but
sure,
if you get a head start, you get a free kick.
Yeah, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Frank, that's been fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of that information, all of that wisdom and experience. How can any of our listeners who are listening, if they wanted to just check out, what you do or where to find you, what would be the best place for them to go to?
Thank you, Gavin, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
But go to our website, pinpointdesign.com.au.
Yep.
It's got my email and contact details, and you can see some of our work. And I'm happy to have a chat with anybody if they want to just chew the fat over an idea they've got, or talk about, my experiences, how they could help them in the future. So I'm open to help anybody, Gavin.
Awesome. And I know that's the kind of person you are. So thank you very much, Frank. Keep up the great work, and you're quite inspirational with your story, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm really glad we got an opportunity to do it now. So once again, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Gavin, and I look forward to seeing you back at karate.
Definitely, 100%.
Black belt this year, Gavin.
There you go.
Train hard.
Yes.
See ya.
If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.